So what we were going to finish today, we should finish our discussion of handling stress, and it is important because working in a service desk, you could be subject to a lot of stress, and we've had quite a discussion about this already, and we kind of left off at this point. But basically, the idea being is there's certain things we can do to manage our stress. Some of the things we talked about is sort of disconnecting from the stressful situation and sort of periodic renewal. I know there's a word for that, which is recreation. I mean, the word has in it what is happening. We recreate, we re rebuild ourselves after sort of being torn down by all the stresses of life, and we do that by playing soccer or riding motorcycles or playing computer games or some kind of spiritual thing. Also, there's many things that we can do to sort of sort of rebuild ourselves. Now, what we're what we've come to at this point now is, well, how can we sort of structurally organize ourselves? And that's the key word there. How can we organize ourselves so that there is less stress? And one thing that we can do is we can be more organized, right? And so some things that we can do, and I'm not an expert on this. I mean, if you looked at my desk, you'd know that I'm not an expert on this. And the other, and that brings up the other point, which is knowing how to do this and doing it is different things too. And you will be helped or hindered by your own personality in that as well. I mean, some people just love to organize things, and some people don't. Um, and again, that doesn't mean you're a bad person either or a good person. I mean, we're all good people down, and you know that. But the thing is, it's harder for some people to organize themselves than others, and so there's some things that we can do to make it easier for us to organize. So what we can do is we can make sort of lists for us, as it says here, some checklists, keep up with our paperwork. That really helps. I mean, so basically the idea here is to not let things get away from us. um, and all right, so we can manage our, if we manage our workload, one of the things that we could do is we could have a little routine at the start of every day. Now, most of us do have some kind of routine, but in a work environment, something like this, we call it a BOD, a beginning of the day checklist. So, every time when we come into work, after you've had your coffee, if you drink coffee, or your glass of water or whatever it is, then you do certain things. And it could be you start off with answering all the urgent emails. It could be that you do a lot of these other things. So you could create a list of things that you need to know so that you can ask the right people. You could do something like this: greet your coworkers. It's hard to do in the day of pandemics, right? But you know these things do actually reduce. So you might have noticed. I'm sorry I can't give you the video because my video is not working. But uh, yeah, I come to work every day, and I don't have to. I mean, because of the COVID thing, right? We're doing our lessons online. I suppose I could stay at home, but it actually helps me. And even though there's not very many people here, I'll say hello to a few people, and some things happen. Like yesterday, I um, I invigilated a test for one of the other instructors, and the day before that, I helped one of the other instructors to get their injection for the COVID. Now, if I'd stayed at home, I wouldn't have had those interactions. Those interactions are helpful to me, just like they're helpful to my colleagues. I mean, we get that connection, and if we don't have that connection, I just don't think life's as good. So yeah, anyways. So and I mean, I know you guys know that too, because I see a lot of students here at college, and they're sort of getting that connection with their fellow students in a safe way, of course. But yeah, some things that we could do. But as you see there, there's a list of them. Take a breath, straighten our desk, have a to-do list. Now, it's universally recognized that a to-do list is going to help, and that is obvious by the fact if you pick up your mobile phone and sort of go to the app store, it could be Google App or Apple Store, whatever one you're using, you'll find 25, well, Apple maybe not, but certainly in Google Store, you'll find 25 free apps that you can download onto your computer, which will help you do a daily to-do list. And that's because it's been recognized as something that really is helpful. We used to do the to-do lists on a piece of paper, of course, or in a notebook. I still keep a notebook. The reason for that is that I can return to it very quickly. But also, a lot of people put something in their mobile phones. So here's some things, right? Being helpful to your colleagues. Like I said, like yesterday, I invigilated a test for one of my colleagues that weren't able to do it if I didn't help them. Um, that actually helps me just the same as it helps them. I mean, it is a good thing to help your colleagues, just because, well, it just makes life better. And so, if we can do something like make a list of things that we have discovered that our colleagues would benefit from, um, we, we can do that. Um, Keeping up with your paperwork, I hope that's obvious. That actually is a huge sort of stressor. If you're going home from work every day and you've got all this work that you just are behind in,
دي
that's
بدأ مش بدري مش بدري بعد الدراسة على الأسئلة اللي تجيك في التصغير اللي بيعطينا إياهم يا أخي. فصار الواحد والله خايف يا أخي، مش عارف كيف يدرس أصلا بطريقة المدرس.
I'm not sure why I'm getting that somebody's talking over in Arabic. Is that one of the students? Or yeah, that's kind of weird. I'm saying that because I didn't understand what was said there. I should have learned Arabic, but I haven't yet. Anyway, so I've muted you. If you want to say something, you can unmute yourself. Um, so logging all the problems. So what that is basically that means if you're working in the service desk and you're using the ticket system, the incident management system, which we're using OTRS. If you're using that, you need to when the phone comes or the email or whatever from the customer, you need to sort of immediately log that into the system. So every sort of interaction with the customer needs to have some kind of logging into the system there. And that should be done sort of immediately, not sort of later. Hey, look at that. My video has come back. Oh, well, how about that? Who knew? Um, so there's the other thing is you need to follow up on your tickets. Make sure that they are sort of under process. Now, here's the point about deadlines, and I know that students are having difficulty with this one because of the daily sort of requests that I get from students. Can we push this deadline back by a day or something like that? Now, I don't want you guys to look like this guy, and so I am generally sort of try to be sort of understanding with that. And there's a sort of a joint responsibility on that, I suppose, between the teachers and the students, that we shouldn't bring deadlines on to people that are to the point where it's not possible. And so there's a negotiation on that, and that's the other thing, right? You should understand that that deadline, if you think that you're not going to be able to make a deadline, and that happens, right? So obviously that happens. Um, if you Yes, we do look like that. Me too. If you think that you can't make it, then you need to start talking to people early, right? Not So your deadline's on Friday. On Monday morning, it wouldn't be Friday. Would it be like your deadline's on Sunday or it's on Thursday? Sunday morning, you notice that it's unlikely you're going to make that deadline. At that point, you should talk to somebody about it, right? And so, rather than sort of carrying that huge sort of thing with you through the week and then still not making the deadline, maybe there's something that can be done in the meantime to sort of make that happen. So, what I'm saying is that, yeah, we understand deadlines. They don't always sort of end the way we want them to. And so communication is the real key to this, right? We need to communicate what's going on with that deadline so that we get the best result for everybody. Yeah, I know that's how you guys are sometimes. Having said that, there's some deadlines that you just can't avoid, right? So we've got one here, for example, at the college on like the 7th of April or the 8th of April, we stop classes and we have exams. In this course, we don't have an exam. We used to, but at that point, you're going to have to present your project that we gave you instead of an exam. You guys are all working on that. So we've done like task 1, task 2. You're building this nice little manual, and you're going to have to present your manual, and that just has to happen, right? I mean, April 15th is too late. I mean, the marks are going to be in. and we're going to be starting our next semester. So there are some deadlines that just cannot be avoided. And so what you should do is you should break the task down into smaller hunks. Now, I hope you noticed that we as teachers recognize that for your project, and so we broke it down into parts that are deliverable in stages. So this week you do this, next week you do that, and then by the end of March, when we come to April, you've already done most of the project. The project's almost done. And then, so therefore, you can meet the deadline that really counts, which is the handing in of the completed work. So all right, so let me just talk about that briefly as how that applies to you. In some ways, we would call this scaffolding, right? So we put this structure up, which is every week you hand in this stuff, and then at the end you do that. Now, when you're in your work environment, you might not have that structure. It'll just be you got this deadline, and so what you should take away from this is, yeah, when I was doing my projects in IT, I remember we used to have every week we had a little deliverable that we have to do. Maybe I should do that with my projects at work, and so that at the end I easily hand it in without sort of having 6 days of no sleep, staying up every night. Now, to be honest, I couldn't do that, right? I mean, when I get home in the evening, there's not much going on in terms of work. I'm too tired. Maybe you can do that with enough Red Bull and coffee. I don't know, but um, the point is you see, I hope, from the way that we do the projects here, is we don't just give you a project and then forget about it for 3 months and then, oh, where's your project? No, it's like, every week we do a little bit on that project. Now, I don't. What I'm hoping for you is that you don't look at that and say, "Oh yeah, that's the way projects are. If I need to have any structure, my boss or my teacher will give me the structure." No, you need to put that structure on yourself. That's what I'm saying, right? So here we kind of show you how that is. We make a structure and say that this is due this day, this is due that day. You need to do that yourself. And certainly, if you get into sort of higher education, if you do a master's degree or something like that, you'll find that they give you the dissertation and then they just leave you with it, right? It might be 2 years of work and there's nothing much. So yeah, you need to sort of break it down and have a weekly sort of deliverable for yourself. So the idea of this diagram here is that we all have lots of things to do, and some of those things are really important and should have a big priority on them, and some of those things are not. And we need to sort of filter those things through some kind of process that prioritizes those ones that need to be done now. So priority means that, right? Prior means before. So it has to do with time. So which things are we going to do first? What is our top priority? And how we can determine our top priorities, we can filter things. This is one way we could filter them. We can look at everything and we can say, well, how urgent is it and how important is it? And the things that really need to have the top priority, that is the things that need to be done first, that need to be done right now, are the things that are urgent and important. Urgent meaning it's time constrained. Urgent meaning must be now. Important, I hope that's obvious to you. Important is going to meet our goals. So some things are not urgent and not important. So I mean, that could be like I suppose. So if it's not urgent, there's no time restraint on it, and it's not important. I mean, that could be like watching your favorite Netflix movie. You know what I mean? So it's not urgent. Yeah, I mean, you could look at it today or you could look at it tomorrow. It's not important because hey, who needs it? So that could be it. Something which is urgent but not important could be a random phone call that you get from a random stranger. It's urgent because if you don't answer the phone now, you're not going to get the call. But it's not important. So another one would be, something on social media. All right, I got a notification on my social media that somebody put something on Instagram. Oh, can I like it? Yeah, okay, that's urgent, maybe because you hear the ping, but it's not important. Now, there are some things that are very important, but they're not urgent. And these are the ones that we fall down on. So basically, the idea in this diagram is we should be focusing on things that we've identified as being important and not focusing on things that are not important. But some of those things that are important are not urgent, but we still need to focus them. So how do we get some time aside to do those things? So those are the things that would fall under the category of sort of planning things, right? So I need to plan for next month's presentation. Well, obviously, I don't need to plan that before I go to lunch. It's not that urgent, but I really need to start thinking about it sometime before next month. That's really important. Maybe this presentation will determine whether I get a promotion or not, or maybe it's a big external customer or something. That's really quite important. So I should be spending maybe at least a half hour every day looking at that task. Now, something which would be urgent and important, especially like in a service desk. All right, so a customer contacts you, and there's a large part of the network which is down, and people are not able to do their work. That's important. They can't do their work, and it's urgent because that needs to be fixed right now. That's the thing that we need to be working on now, right? We don't now go and do our planning for the project the discussion next month. We work on this, and then when this is out of the way, then we work on our planning. But we're not watching Netflix and we're not responding to Instagram. You get the idea, right? Because those are not important. We're focusing on these things here that are important, but we've divided them up and prioritized them by how urgent they are. Um, can you just bear with me for a sec? I just got to stop. I have a phone call come in, and it's sort of urgent and important. So hold on. Hello. Yeah, I'm at my work. Yeah, if that's okay. All right. They should give you money. Tell them I'll give them money. Hold on. We handled that quickly. So I hope you're still there. Um, right. So mm, here's the thing about the productivity. I noticed this about myself personally. In the morning, I'm, firing on all cylinders, right? Even before I have a coffee, I'm pretty much awake. And after a coffee or a Red Bull, I can do stuff in the morning pretty good. So that would be early bird, right? Well, yeah, but 9 o'clock at night, don't send me an email and people do. I mean, they send me email and text messages. Yeah, I might, but bear in mind that I'll be lying down and going like that, right? It might not be, what you're hoping. So the Pareto, so the point that I was making there is that, yeah, you should know when you're more productive. Now, what I notice with young people, and you guys fit into that category, you are young people, is that that diurnal, we call it diurnal, that's a daily cycle. And you can actually measure this. I mean, if you put a thermometer in your mouth or something that was there 24 hours a day, you'd notice that your temperature of your body actually changes a little bit over the day. And it's not just because of COVID, right? It's not because you have COVID. But I mean, when I say it changes a little bit, less than 1 degree, but like 0.4 of a degree from when it's hottest to when it's coldest. It might be a whole degree in difference. And the time when it's at the lowest is, for most people, that's sort of like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that, right? And so, and then the time when it's the warmest that's their peak time. Now, for me, that's going to be like at 6 in the morning or something like that. And for you guys, what I notice is that for younger people, that's generally they don't sort of have their peak performance until after like 10 or 11 o'clock. And I've actually read articles where they said that, university studies and things like that, and even high schools, they probably shouldn't actually start until like 10 o'clock in the morning because young people aren't really firing on all cylinders before then, but they're doing pretty good at 9 o'clock at night. And that, whereas us old guys, 9 o'clock at night, there's not a lot that we can really do effectively, except sort of sit back and watch a movie or sleep. Um, so yeah, you need to you know when you're most effective, and you need to use that time. But we all do need sleep. The Pareto principle, the idea of this is that we get 80% of our effectiveness out of 20% of our effort. Well, that sounds like a great thing, doesn't it? So the thing is to identify what is that 20% of your effort, which is going to produce 80% of your output. And that usually takes a little bit of thinking. If you management is kind of like science. And I don't know if any of you studied science, but in science we sort of we take measurements and then we reflect on the measurements and come up with some hypothesis, and then we can test that with some more measurements. You can actually apply that to your daily work, which should be like, okay, I'll record how much time I do this, how much time I do this, how much time I do this, and you might be able to then identify what are the things where you're putting a little bit of time and getting a big input. I would say that, yeah, for me, that is definitely true. I mean, I'll sit down and I'll work for a couple of hours, and that'll be more benefit than the rest of the day. But it will be by focusing on particular tasks, and you should be able to decide and find out what those are. Okay, so the concept of burnout I may have mentioned before. So burnout, you remember the graph that had a peak, and if we added more stress, then the person's productivity became much less. That's the burnout thing that we're talking about. Certain industries, it's higher than others, and it certainly is in the customer facing service desk type thing. Could be. Uh, Time management. So we talked about that. Uh, phew. Communicate. I'm going over this kind of quickly because that's what it is. You know, if you're feeling sort of overwhelmed, you do need to talk to people about that quickly before it sort of snowballs into something that's really a problem. Planning ahead. Um, yeah. Good stress management. Going through this kind of quickly because it's all kind of sort of platitudes. Um, all right. All right, so developing your skills. Basically, the idea is take some time to sharpen the saw. Don't spend all your time sawing. You'll reduce your stress if you spend, hour or two every week, even after you finish graduating. Spend an hour or two sort of just building new skills. Maybe more than an hour or two. Some people are spending 10 hours a week because they're always studying. And those things do actually benefit. So I hope that we've got the idea there, some things that we can do uh, to uh, to reduce our stress. Do you notice it's mentioned here? There's some things, this is that sort of idea of don't focus on things that you have no control over. Focus on things that you do have control on. There's a whole sort of branch of philosophy that's based on that, which is called Stoicism. You can sort of read up on that if you're interested. Stoicism, Epicurean, not Epicureanism, but Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius, read him if you're really interested in something like that. Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor who is about, I think it was about 180 AD. But he was just an amazing person. I mean, he every day he used to write a little journal about what he was going to do today. I mean, he the stuff that we talk about in this lesson, he was the expert on that. And so, I mean, why I'm saying that and why that might be important is we're talking about 2,000 years ago, and what he was doing exactly applies to us today. There you go. So think about that if you're interested. Marcus Aurelius on managing your time and being stoic and not worrying about things that you can't control, but the things that you can control, focusing on them and doing the best job. So there you go. Some cool stuff. I hope that that helps. All right. So I'm going to escape out of that. So there's the chat. Yes. All right. So um, I need to come on out of that. Stop sharing. And who's here now is we got 7 people here still. Now I don't know why. There we go. That's done. Any questions on that? Now, what I should say is, I'm sure you're all aware. The next time we will meet, we won't actually meet. What will happen is that the next time the test will open during the next class, and you'll do the test. That's it, right? So I hope that